Hello and welcome to IMCAS TV, 10 Minutes with Dr. Fouad Nahai and Dr. Jonathan Sykes. We are going to focus this discussion on evidence-based medicine, obtaining and using the best data available, and making decisions about the care and treatment of individual patients, enabling doctors to assess both the benefits and the risks. The obvious first question that I'm going to ask to you, Dr. Sykes, is what is evidence-based medicine?
Well, evidence-based medicine is the conscientious use of the best evidence available. That may be a clinical study, it may be creating a new study, but the idea is to integrate this into patient care so that our patients benefit from this in the best way possible. That's what evidence-based medicine is.
Why is evidence-based medicine so important now? Because through medical school, through our training, through our apprenticeship, we are taught by our professors, we do what they teach us to do, and when we go to meetings, when we read our journals, we read an article, and that's how we make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
What evidence-based medicine brings to it is the ability to analyze that data, to see how valid it is, and then to accept it and implement it into your practice.
And convert it into your practice. And
in other words, we're going away from expert opinion, this is how I do it, this is how I was taught, to here are the facts, this is what happens when you give this particular drug to this patient, or this is what happens if you operate on someone and don't take precautions to prevent deep venous thrombosis.
so teaching evidence-based medicine, it really can bring something to the practitioners.
Absolutely, and through the practitioners, the patients benefit.
And the patients benefit. You wanted to add something, Dr. Sykes?
Actually, the thing that I wanted to add, he just said, the ultimate goal is the patient's best benefit. The patient's benefit when we use the evidence the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you see the current and future development of relationships between the pharmaceutical industry, manufacturers, and doctors for your specialty? And how do you avoid the conflict of interest?
This is a more difficult question.
Yeah.
Because, and it's a complex question with a complex answer. Specifically, the pharma has the money, and clinical studies take a lot of time and a lot of money, and this is difficult for all busy practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a difficult thing. Obviously, pharma, whether they would like to say it or not, want to influence the studies, sometimes the results of the studies, but they want to just put a little skewed or a little bias into the study. And the goal of evidence-based medicine is to eliminate bias. It's to eliminate bias. It's to take physician bias, subject bias, to get rid of all of this. This is our goal. And so there's a conflict of interest just in the idea that pharma's involved, but at the same time, they're necessary.
The goal is complete objectivity, in fact.
Absolutely.
It's not an easy situation. You know, we need industry, industry needs us. They need us as experts to design and carry out the studies. We need their finances. They support our meetings. They support a lot of our colleagues who go and lecture on their behalf. So we have to be transparent, which means when somebody's on the podium, we need to know who paid for him to be there, how much financial interest he has in the product or the drug or the device that he or she is promoting. Exactly. And that's where it becomes difficult. And that's where having presenters disclose their affiliations, having journal articles carry a line disclosing the affiliations, at least makes it acceptable. So you can read a paper and say, oh, well, this guy works for the company. At least you know, rather than just reading it without knowing there's a relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that lack of bias is important in education. It's important in research, and ultimately that translates to the best patient care, which is ultimate goal of
That's
all
the
of this.
goal. That is the goal. Now, Dr. Nahai, you are the editor-in-chief of the Aesthetic Surgery Journal. So again, the selection process when choosing your papers, is it hard to find that non-bias?
I like to think that we've come up with the best solution. First of all, I am not allowed to have any affiliations. A paper comes across, I assign it to peer review and ask the reviewers whether they have any conflicts. So if it's a device from company A, reviewer number one is a consultant, that reviewer is disqualified. So we try to find enough reviewers that have no relationship with that company to review the papers.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, but what if a doctor's experience doesn't fit with the data, the study group data that's been collected? And do you think that it allows for the wisdom of a doctor's experience or the patient's individuality in evidence-based medicine?
Ultimately, the dogma of evidence-based medicine is not a doctrine that says that you must use this.
It's not a set of rules.
It's not a set of rules. It's the use of the best clinical medicine. So that comes in both the way we gain data and the way we look at questions. It makes us pose questions in a way that many times we don't even pose the question. We do something.
Right.
And this is particularly true in plastic surgery, in a specialty where, as Dr. Nahai so correctly said, we're used to being taught by the people that have brought us up and have taught us, and they're our experts. We have
and
to
you don't question these experts.
We don't question. And the idea isn't that their judgments and their experience is not important. It's very important. We just have to overlay other scientific evidence onto that and combine them, combine the experience.
Best available data.
Exactly.
Collating it all.
Exactly.
Now, which leads me to my next question is there a way that all this data and all this evidence can be collected and centralized so that it is accessible to all practitioners?
Well, absolutely. Once the data is published, it's available to everyone. But we have to be clear. Aesthetic surgery is as much an art as a science. Two surgeons don't have the same experience. They don't have the same hands.
Don't have the
the
same
two patients
needs.
are not the same. So when we talk about evidence-based medicine and aesthetic surgery, it isn't like saying that you have high cholesterol. There's been a study, thousands of patients have taken statin drugs. Their cholesterol comes down, so that's the drug for you. Our specialty does not lend itself to that. There are areas that lend itself to it, such as if you're having a facelift, should you be given antibiotics?
Right.
If so, for how long? So in those areas, we're seeking evidence, but we also have to make it clear that it really is an art, and we're not.
It's more of a guideline.
Doesn't lend itself to evidence-based medicine as much as internal medicine, where you're prescribing a drug, you know it works, and you know the side effects.
Yeah, you wanted to add something, Dr. Sykes?
Yeah, I could not agree with him more. I think he is right on the money with this. We've got to be able to do things like a technical thing and have differences in that. And those are very hard things to study because of the inherent biases of two people doing a technique differently.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what Dr. Nahai mentioned is so important. We have to study things like the use or non-use of antibiotics and put science behind that.
And put science.
We have to put science behind certain things. The whole idea that I just do this and it works for
Blindly,
me
yeah.
is not good enough.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This is really, really interesting and fascinating. And I thank you both for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.